Good morning. I haven't made a video in a really long time and I thought I would. I'm in lovely Seattle. Here is my view out my window. There have been all sorts of things on my mind and just flowing through some really big stuff, but something that's it's just been up that I've been noticing and that I wanted to share for whoever it helps or we need to hear this. But there's this thing in our world where like in the spirituality community or in the consciousness community, being more mindful of how we react and taking our time, taking a breath, bringing consciousness to our language so that we can share how we're feeling and what's going on in our insides from a place of, having processed some of it or a place of understanding so that we can communicate effectively and all of that. And I think it's something that when people first start to wake up, it's so important because it does bring less reactivity and more understanding and more connection and more space for understanding in our relationships. And the part of the equation that's not talked about enough is that there are, that is especially important for people who tend to be on the side of the spectrum that is overreactive. If you're super in your emotions and you don't know how to communicate what you're feeling effectively, learning how to pause, breathe, bring understanding, or not engage a person or a situation until you've been able to work through some of the feelings that you're feeling, to then have the wisdom to be able to say to the person, I'm feeling angry or I'm feeling hurt for these reasons and this is what's going on inside my system, is so valuable. But the other side of the equation is that there are those of us who do that so much. To an extreme, we keep ourselves bottled up and we get super conscious and overly conscious, and we hold this kind of non-reactivity to a point of detriment where it's like you're so overly kind of cautious about what you say and bringing conscious attention and saying the right words and putting the words together in a way that is helpful and has understanding and clarity and having processed things and blah, 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 blah. And the growth for us, if that's where you're at, is to actually be more reactive. And that's the part that I'm sure it exists in this world, in this community, but not enough people talk about that. This aspect of us that needs to actually be more reactive, that needs to let the in the moment emotions fly, that needs to just burst into anger or burst into tears or, not be so measured and held back and contemplative and kind of getting everything kind of conscious and right first before communicating it. We need to have space in our relationships to be reactive, to let those parts of us just out without having to kind of measure them out first and process them first and make them all cleaned up and pretty and clear. Right? And that's something that I'm thinking about so much in my own self, because I am one of those people. I found consciousness and was like, yes, this is the ticket to everything. I will just now process everything in myself and only communicate in these really cleaned up, buttoned up ways. And it has done amazing things in my life. I get to communicate and I've learned to see energy flows and emotional flows, and I know how to hold them and process them. And then I know how to communicate with people in effective ways that increases the odds of it landing well, and increases the odds of connection. And I don't, for me, it's been really hard. That's not my edge. For people that are overreactive, that's the edge, is learning how to take a breath and take a beat and pull back and pause before communicating, right? All those things. That's not my edge. I do that really well. My edge is actually being reactive and just being in my emotions and letting people see them without them being all cleaned up. And this Venus retrograde is like kicking my ass because I'm having to be more in the moment, and it's really calling me in my relationships to ask and to show up in this way that is more just like, okay, I'm letting it fly. Like, this is where we're at. This is what I'm feeling. This is what's going on. And I just wanted to put this out there because I know I'm not alone, and I don't see this talked about enough. The need for more reactivity. Maybe reactivity isn't quite the right word, but just this space to bring our fullness of emotions and the unprocessed parts of ourselves to the table, that the human part of us, you know, gets to exist and gets to be part of relationship, and we get to be angry and unprocessed. And yeah, maybe it is coming from childhood wounds or the inner child or ancestral shit, but like, who cares where it's coming from? It gets to belong to. And it's not to deny that processing isn't important, and we all need that, and we need to be able to like have these reactive moments and then still do the work and process and communicate and come back to the table and speak with kindness and measuredness and have breath, for reconnection. It's a both and for sure, but it is a both and. It's not just the measured place. It's also the reactive, full emotion, getting to exist. And that doesn't mean taking it out on your partner or your friends or the family members or the people in your life. It doesn't mean being abusive. It doesn't mean, harming others. But it does mean speaking and allowing the full emotions you're feeling to be felt and expressed in front of someone else. So that's my random take on this Thursday. I hope it helps someone. And yeah, I don't know. I hope you're well, whoever you are, wherever you are. And may there be space for all of us, all the parts of us, the processed, communicative parts of us, and the reactive, messy parts of us. And may we have the courage to engage both, whichever is your edge. May you find the space to engage, and only then can we come back to center, when we actually have allowed the full range of the pendulum swing to be in and have experienced both sides, so that we can have bandwidth and capacity for both, to communicate well and process and be measured and clear and express, consciously what's going on in our systems, and to be reactive and emotional and in our mess. And only when we allow and love both sides do we get to then choose and have space for both and love both parts of the people in our lives, so that they then also have the freedom around us to be their full selves. And we invite their conscious, put together side and their messy reactive side, and we can now be with both. And so they don't have to show up a certain way, and we don't have to show up a certain way, and it allows for so much more freedom for all involved. And then you do get to kind of have more peace and ease, and the reactive parts don't have to stick around as long because they are not fighting to try to be seen, because they get to be there inherently. Then it's like, oh, you can just move through the reaction and done, and it's not a big deal, and it doesn't necessarily have sticky residue. And the put together parts can be there and can express and can maybe help bridge between the reactive parts and then the other parts. So, okay, my message for today. I hope you're well, and I send you big hugs.